For instance, 1.5 years back, around December 2020, I wrote a lot of ethics answers, but it was never consistent. However, I think 1 year before your prelims is a good time to start answer writing, because in the last 4 months of prelims, you won't be able to write answers. So the idea is in the first 6 to 8 months of your preparation, you should write some answers to get the essence of answer writing. If you are in a burnout stage, take 3-4 days, 5 days off, even a week off. But the idea is consistency. So this should be an exception, not the trend. I did keep a to-do list handy. So I purchased a small diary. It's with me. I still put my to-do list on this. So you can always write everything that you want to cover on one page and keep striking it off as you get done with it. The role of mentor becomes very important because they tell you these hacks, if I may say so, because they know what the exam requires.
Thank you so much for joining today's webinar, and I'm thrilled to have you here. You got a rank in your very first attempt. So we'll talk a lot about that in the webinar, but let me just quickly introduce today's topic. So today in this webinar, we're going to discuss a self-study plan that you can study for 5 hours a day, and a practical approach to self-study and how you can get a rank in top 50 in your very first attempt. Right. So in this webinar, you can expect to understand how to create your timetable and how to basically begin your preparation if you're trying to study by yourself. All right. So without much ado, Aditya, thank you so much again for joining with us. And so you got a rank in, right? And we have had a conversation and you were preparing for law, right? So how
Yes.
did that change come about? So you were preparing for law. When did this idea got conceived that you wanted to become a civil servant? And how did you start your preparation? We just want to start the webinar by that.
Okay, first of all, hello everyone. Hello Vasundhara. And thanks Civilsdaily for inviting me for this session. Now I would move straight to the question. Now, vis-a-vis my decision of aspiring for the civil services, my father was a constable in the Uttar Pradesh police. So when I saw that khaki vardi, it always inspired me. And initially, therefore, I wanted to be an IPS officer. However, as I grew up, as I joined my BA LLB honors course, I saw the interface of law with society, and these things made me understand that as an IAS officer, I can make a much better impact in society. So that is what initially motivated me to go ahead for the exam.
Right. So, so you started preparing for your exams for IAS while you were in college, right? So how has that experience been for you?
Yeah, so I had the idea that I'll be writing civil services exam very early on, but my core preparation started in 2020, and that's when the lockdown also happened. So during 4th year and 5th year is when I prepared for the exam, and right after graduating around April, on 5th of June was the prelims.
Right.
So the experience was quite enriching insofar as firstly I was able to get in the first attempt, so there was less of the frustration of going through the cycle over and over again. And I think college also kept me occupied a little. So when you have multiple things going on, it also, like when your mind is not empty, you do not think much about random things. In that sense, my experience was quite good. Yeah, that's pretty much about the experience.
Right. And while having a conversation with you, I understood that you tried to just go about it with the self-study approach, right? So there's so much conundrum about around about coaching and taking help or taking classes. So what made you go the self-study route? How did
So
you?
my primary concern in deciding between coaching and self-study was the issue of convenience. I felt that while being at home, provided you have a decent Wi-Fi network and there's not much disturbance at your home, if you have these two prerequisites sorted, then home becomes a better place because you do not have to travel to the coaching. You can schedule your study timing according to whatever commitments you have on the side. For instance, I had some of my college commitments, so I did not have that scheduling problem. And And lastly, vis-a-vis understanding of different issues, if you are fairly material, then even if you face some issues in certain topics, you can always look at YouTube videos. There are so many free resources. In that sense, self-study is quite possible today. And this may not have been the case around 10 years back when there was not internet and teaching on YouTube was not there. So all of these factors contributed to my decision of studying on my own.
Right. And there must have been a lot of challenges also along the way, right? So all the students that are starting to, study by themselves or just starting preparing for this exam by studying by themselves. So what do you have to tell them about the challenges that they can, sort of expect and just be prepared about them from the very beginning?
See, the challenges can be defined broadly in two ways, I think. The first are the bigger life challenges that are thrown at you. My father passed away in 2018, although that was 2 years before my college. But these kind of personal life challenges. And second are the ones that are related to your UPSC preparation. And one common thread between the two problems in facing these problems is to have a positive perspective towards life, that everything teaches you a lesson and that everything strengthens you. So whenever you face a challenge, remember in your mind what you are aiming for, and that you have to keep going on no matter what, because everyone else is facing those problems. So my approach was always to look at people who are worse off, and that always gave me strength, that if these people are working hard, I do not have an excuse. I remember one of these toppers this year, he has 3 of his limbs amputated and he just has 1 limb. So people like these always give you inspiration irrespective of what challenge you face. And vis-a-vis the specific problems of UPSC, you can always reach out to mentors, or you can talk with your friends if you know someone already who is writing the exam, peers. All these things help you a lot in the exam specific problems.
Right. So coming back to the point that you started your preparation, right? So you started around 2020, you said. And how did you curate a timetable for yourself, and how did you start your preparation, the absolute beginning?
Okay. So before I start this question, a disclaimer that I've already mentioned previously, that lockdown had been imposed when I started my preparation. So the 4th year and 5th year of my college were basically virtual. I was not in campus. So that eased a lot of things for me. However, I think this answer might be relevant for others who have physical college also, because I also had some commitments vis-a-vis the projects and some preparation. So I think you need to make a crystal clear delineation between the other commitments that you have and your UPSC preparation.
Right.
Ideally, you should give minimum of 6 to 7 hours to your preparation. You can set aside 2 to 2.5 hours for your other commitments. So you have to manage these things a little bit, create a macro plan. So do not leave your assignments, your ends and preparation, or your job commitments for the very end near the deadline. If you distribute it over time, and if you are able to balance it with UPSC preparation by giving proper time slots to each, then it becomes a lot easier for you. You can keep your college or other commitments at a certain time of the day. I used to keep them in the night time when I was almost exhausted. So that is there. Other than that, vis-a-vis the planning for UPSC, again, you have to create macro plans and you have to create micro plans. So have a broad sense of your timeline in mind, that I have to finish optional in the first 3-4 months. Then I have to finish this subject in this much time. This has to be your broad timeline, and it doesn't have to be very precise. You can keep adjusting it. Vis-a-vis micro plans, I did not have a hour by hour schedule, but I did keep a to-do list handy. So I purchased a small diary. It's with me. I still put my to-do list on this. So you can always write everything that you want to cover on one page and keep striking it off as you get done with it during the course of the day. And that keeps motivating you, looking at the list getting crossed out, and combining these micro and macro plans, you can progress in your preparation.
Right. So, your optional was law, the subject that you were studying in college. I think obviously that helped you a lot with covering the optional, right? But say for the students who do not have haven't chosen an optional that was in their academics. So what do you suggest for them? What is the best time for them to start with their optional preparations, according to you?
Ideally, whenever I advise candidates, I tell them to finish the optional as the first thing. Because once you start preparing for the GS and the pre and mains other subjects, then you get very busy in them and it's easier to be in the running for other subjects. As in, let's say you start 1 year back. You give your first 3.5 months to your optional subject and ensure that it is at least 75% prepared for mains. Because if you keep it for later, that is between prelims and mains, then your scores will get hit. Now, once you finish this in first 3 months, then for first 6 months following these 3 months, combine your pre and mains preparation, study in an integrated manner, and then switch to prelims specific preparation around February, March, whatever suits you. So in that sense, that was the overall plan of preparing for the optional.
Right. So you mentioned that you never had a hour-to-hour plan of what to study, what to do. But roughly, if somebody would like to take an idea from your schedule, like did you have broad plans as to I allocate to a particular subject or how much time will I study for prelims and then move on to main? How was it like?
Yeah, so I never had a concrete watertight plan vis-a-vis hourly schedule, but I did keep a broad idea in mind as to what I wanted to do throughout the day. So I'm an early bird. I wake up very early, and my idea was always to pick the hardest thing first. And for me, that was optional. So you can choose the hardest thing first, give 3-4 hours, one big session to it, and then I used to move on to the subjects of prelims because that becomes easier. And then the parts that require the least concentration, say your newspaper or something else, that you can keep towards the end of your day because that's when your energy levels are almost out and you don't want to do some intensive work. So that was the broad schedule. But I only had my to-do list. I used to keep it in order. Like number one, I used to put optional subject. Then number two, whatever prelims subject I'm studying. Number three, somewhere answer writing and these things. And that was the broad plan.
All right. So you said that newspaper is of least importance for you. So you put it, for later in the day. So how did you prepare for current affairs and what were your top sources to prepare, or what was your plan overall to prepare for current affairs? Because a lot of
So
students, I think, have this question whether to study newspaper or how much time to allocate for newspaper every day. So how did you manage your current affairs?
So there's a slight correction. I did not say that newspaper is the least important. I said that it requires the least concentration. So newspaper is crucial in your preparation insofar as it gives you a general understanding of everything that is going on in your society, in your nation, in the entire globe. So you must keep track of the newspapers, but 1 hour is more than sufficient and you should not give it more than that. So only to remain in keep your general awareness up to track. And then for mains specifically, I used to jot down examples from newspapers. So I never took notes from examples, barring these. I'm sorry, I think something happened because of which my call got disconnected. I hope I'm audible now.
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. So I was saying I used to jot down the important events that were related to mains. So for mains, you write examples in your answers, right? There you find things that are not so relevant for your prelims preparation, but relevant for your mains preparation. For instance, I can recall a few things. Project Sashakt by Delhi government to teach self-defense to girls in Delhi. These things are not asked in your prelims preparation. But if you write them as examples, as case studies in your mains answers, then it really, that value addition element of your answer, it helps in that. So that is the second purpose of newspaper other than your general awareness bit. So in that sense, keep up with the newspapers. And yes, one newspaper is sufficient. For the other bits of current affairs, do follow one monthly magazine because that will be relevant for your prelims preparation and again, supplementing whatever you have read from the newspaper. That is pretty much it, newspaper and one monthly magazine. And one more thing, I used to follow it up with a lot of YouTube content. So I used to watch journalists, Shekhar Gupta on Cut the Clutter at the Print. He's a good one. And there are many such journalists and YouTube creators who give you a balanced perspective that is not partisan or um, specific to any section. So follow such people on YouTube also. That supplements your general awareness of things.
Right. So, but for somebody who it's a plethora of content out there, right? YouTube and this endless content. So for people that get just carried away and we just have 5 hours. So how much time would you tell them to allocate for current affairs if they want to cover current affairs daily? What is the ideal time for you, according to
So
you?
these supplementary things, watching YouTube creators, is not necessary. So you can also ignore if you are very short on time. But I used to watch it while, say, I was eating breakfast. So that's when I used to watch it. Or it used to be people have escapes. Used to be my escape. And since it was supplementary to the preparation, it came in handy. But you don't have to absolutely do it. Newspapers and current affairs magazine will suffice. But if you like spending time, your free time in these things, then these help.
Right. So it takes up a lot of time, right? Newspaper does take up a lot of time. And so there's just two variants, right? Either you study daily or you can complete, current affairs from monthly magazine. That is why we started a weekly thing for current affairs. We have Samachar Manthan. If anybody wants to try that out, they can check out the details on our website. So it's important to also write answers according consuming content at this point. Nobody is actually getting into answer writing. So that is why we have also covered answer writing into that Samachar Manthan, so that everybody can, study and write and also understand, what kind of content they can actually use in answer writing. So having said that, Aditya, when did you start answer writing? So you started studying, say, so which month? I think there was a question in chat also around. So you started preparing in 2020, but around, say, what month you started preparing seriously?
So around 2 years prior to my prelims, that is around April, May, June 2020. But remember that I also had commitments from college. So those 2 years were not strictly allocated to UPSC preparation. Effectively, it was more than 1.5 years. So I gave some part to my PPO day zero preparation, some part to my end semesters. But all in all, 1.5 years were allocated to the preparation.
Okay. And when did you answer writing?
So answer writing, I used to do answer writing occasionally from the very start of my preparation. For instance, 1.5 years back, around December 2020, I wrote a lot of ethics answers, but it was never consistent. However, I think 1 year before your prelims is a good time to start answer writing, because in the last 4 months of prelims, you won't be able to write answers. So the idea is in the first 6 to 8 months of your preparation, you should write some answers to get the essence of answer writing. Like, what are the things that make your answer good? Subcategorization of points, writing a lot of examples, how to incorporate diagrams. You should have a broad idea of it. And then you can sharpen all of these points between prelims and mains by writing multiple test series.
Right. So for all the students that are getting nervous because it's already 1 year to the, if you're planning for 2024, I can see a few nervous faces. So even if you haven't started answer writing or if you haven't started your preparation, the idea is to start as early as possible. That's the whole point. All right. Because you won't be able to write as much answers as you can now as compared to February of 2024. Right. So, and also we're going to give you all one-on-one phone calls with our mentor so that you can also, discuss your personal strategy with them. But Aditya, so you started answer writing, say a month, a year before your prelim. So that means 6 months into your preparation, you started answer writing, right? And what about test series for prelims? When did you start, checking how much are you scoring and putting yourself to test?
Okay, so one clarification on the previous bit, and then I'll come to this one. So I did start answer writing around 1.5 years back, but it was very occasional. So it wasn't ever systematic. But the idea is that you are in touch with answer writing, that you read toppers' answer copies, you know broadly what goes on in an answer. The major part of the answer writing was like sharpening of everything that happened between prelims and mains. So you should not get bogged down if you haven't started. It's not late at all. Even if you start right now, it's very early. But start, get the idea, get the feel of answer writing. Now, vis-a-vis prelims questions, I think prelims you should starting today itself, as in before you read the any subject, go through the previous year questions. Then read the foundational subject, attempt sectional mock tests, and read the previous year questions again. That's how a holistic reading of a subject is done, in my opinion, because only then you are able to understand what parts to focus on, what not. So prelims questions I used to solve from the very beginning itself. Like I started 2 years before prelims. I used to solve sectional mock tests right after reading the subject.
Right. So you talked about answer writing, you talked about test series of prelims. So I want to understand how did you say balance prelims and mains? Did you start for prelims before you started for mains, or was it an integration? So how did you approach these two exams? Yeah.
I followed an integrated approach to the two. So initially, I used to read the subject and solve prelims questions. But after 6 8 months, once I got comfortable, I also started writing answers and studying for the subjects. I think an integrated manner helps you because there is not much of a difference. For prelims, obviously, you need to memorize certain facts with much more concentration. But the general part, the general awareness is to be built over time, and it happens only when you focus on both the aspects. So there is no need to delineate the two except in the last few months. So when you read just for prelims in the last 3 4 months, then you can focus solely on the facts that you think are prelims worthy. Other than that, keep a general understanding of things that helps you in both prelims and mains.
Right. So I don't know if you are the right person to ask this next question to Aditya, but I really want to know what, according to you, are some of the mistakes that a beginner can avoid? And I'm very sure you haven't made those mistakes, but still, in your opinion, what are the mistakes that a beginner must avoid in their preparation so that they can secure a rank in the very first attempt like you did?
Oh, no, I think everyone makes mistakes. I certainly made many and corrected them over time. So I think some of the major ones are ignoring optional. You cannot ignore your optional because it will jeopardize your mains preparation. So start with your optional early on, make notes, and be ready with 70 to 75% of your notes before prelims, ideally 100%. That will help you a lot in giving much more time to answer writing. And secondly, keep looking at previous year questions. Blindly reading the books also becomes very difficult. I remember the first time I read Lakshmikant, I was reading what was the salary of the president, how many proposals are needed. Everyone does these things. But the idea is to shed these habits as soon as possible and focus on previous year questions, read according to them, study optional, and create a proper schedule. Some people are not able to maintain a flow in their studies because they do not allocate a specific time. For instance, for me, the morning time was the best time to study, and I never compromised on that, barring once in 10 odd days when you need a break. Other than that, keeping consistency is very important. That these are some things that the beginner should keep in mind.
Right. So I remember when you had a discussion with Sajal sir. Sajal sir was so sure that this person is gonna get a rank, even though he's very young and he's new at preparing and right. It's his first interview, obviously. So how was your experience with Sajal sir, and what do you think is the role of a mentor in this whole UPSC's journey?
Sajal sir, the reviews given by Sajal sir were really instrumental. I think some of the hacks, if you could say, in answering the interview questions were beyond incredible. So that really helped me a lot in interview preparation. And the role of mentor becomes very important because they tell you these hacks, if I may say so, because they know what the exam requires. Like some of the things we know, we have learned it from teachers and the toppers. So always it is better to be in touch with these mentors. And yeah, just following their advice and giving it your consistency and discipline is a fine balance.
Right. So it is a long journey, especially for aspirants that do not qualify in the very first attempt. And then there is a baggage also for the students that do not qualify the first, initial attempts. So how do you what do you suggest for them to stay emotionally strong or stable, or how did you manage those down times in your preparation? Say you score poorly and very near to the exam. So how did you battle through that?
So having a strong mindset is crucial to preparing for UPSC. And like I said previously, one way for me to stay strong was to look at people who were worse off in their journey. Everyone faces challenges, and if you look at it, there will almost always be someone who is worse off than you, and still they are grinding and working hard to make their attempt the best one. So having a positive mindset then will also help you in prelims and all these stages. Even I used to get low scores around January in prelims, but I always told myself that sometimes I used to tell myself stories that mocks are different from original UPSC paper and that I'll score well in the final UPSC. So it is a lot about mind games. You have to keep yourself going even in your low moments. Of course, some breaks like once in 10 days, that is fine. But do not let your mind play games with you such that you become demotivated and you're not able to study for days on end. That cannot happen. Always look at people who are struggling, and that is the essence of my motivation aspect, and that keeps me going.
All right. So Aditya, you studied and you obviously got a rank, but you were telling me that there's something else that you did apart from studying, just the syllabus. So I want you to tell the students what else worked for you apart from just studying.
Yeah, so studying all day is obviously not possible for everyone. You need time for yourself. Now, what I used to do in my free time, I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos. I used to listen to podcasts, and I used to work out. And even during workout, I used to listen to podcasts, not music those days at least. And that really helped me a lot because as I've also previously emphasized, think that general awareness is very important in this exam. And if your entertainment can be combined with these things, then it's the best combination. I'll give you an example. I used to listen to a podcast called Philosophize This. And note it's a very good podcast generally because it will keep you interested. And it also helps you in UPSC preparation in ethics paper, in essay paper. Now, I wasn't initially listening to it just for UPSC exam. I really liked it. The first episode of the podcast itself, the first episode talks about a philosopher, Heraclitus, who said that you can't step into the same river twice. And if you notice, this is one of the essay topics in this year paper. And because I had listened to the podcast, I was able to write an essay on this topic. And this happened in many things. So watching these YouTube creators, these journalists, listening to podcasts, it improves your general awareness of things that you are able to use in your answer writing, in your essay paper. And it also keeps you going. When you are not motivated towards studying, then you can just listen to them and calm down.
Right. So Aditya, now we'll take a few questions from the students that they have asked in the chat box. So if you have more questions, you can put in the chat box. We're going to take them up. So Prateek Kumar asked, how did you analyze prelims and mains test series? Please elaborate if you can.
So for prelims, you open your, okay, one thing unique that I did, I think, while analyzing my prelims answer sheet is, I used to take a lot of guesswork. I attempted 99 questions in my prelims paper, which is a lot. Now, why I attempted so much? Because I used to empirically analyze the dividend that I got from my attempts. So I used to create 4 categories while attempting the prelims mock tests. One category was 100% sure, one was 50-50, one was don't know but I have a hunch, and one was like I do not know anything at all. These were the 4 categories. While attempting the question, say I attempted first question, I'm 100% sure about it. I'll write it in that column. Second question, let's say 50-50. I'll put it in that column. Similarly, I used to plot all these 100 questions in all these 4 categories. Now, after solving the entire mock test, you look at your overall marks. You also look at these category-wise marks. How many marks you are getting in the questions that you know only 50-50? How many in the questions that you did not know at all? And I found that in all 4 categories, 90% of the times I used to get something positive, even if it is +1 mark. So that's how prelims analysis, this is something unique that I did. Not many people tell that. other than that, open the answer key to your prelims mock test. The questions that you think are important, read them in detail. The ones that are less important, you can also skip them. And vis-a-vis mains analysis happens a lot by looking at other people's copies. So Google search for other people's mock test copies, and that will tell you a lot about what good answer writing entails. I think Shruti Sharma ma'am, she was AIR1 in the 2021 edition of UPSC. She wrote unparalleled answers, and I took a lot of inspiration from her answer copies. You can find your answer writing style by looking at different toppers and incorporate whatever suits you. So write your answers, compare them with the facts that are provided in mains model test copies, and then look at the toppers copies of that particular mock test, and generally also look at the toppers copies of previous years. That was the way of analyzing my tests.
Right. So that's a very interesting, and I think a lot of students are going to benefit with that method. So Anushri Anand has asked that she's in the final year of her graduation, and she's facing challenges with respect to consistency because of her college commitments. I think you answered it, but if you can brief it for her again.
Okay. So one thing that you have to keep a clear vision of how do you want to deal with college? Like, are you a topper in college who wants to keep your grades very consistent, very high, or you want to compromise a little bit? I was in the latter category. I knew I want to compromise a little bit on my college preparation. So I used to prepare mediocre projects. I used to do mediocre preparation for my end semester examinations. And trust me, that was enough for securing decent grades in the college also. And once you do that, you'll be able to delineate how much time you want to give to your college and how much to UPSC preparation. And goes without saying, UPSC preparation has to be more than 50% of the time, preferably 70, 75%, even 80%. So in that sense, you have to delineate your commitments, give strict timelines to how much you want to give to college, how much to preparation, and then implement it in spirit.
So Himanshu Mathur asked, if we are joining coaching, then is the role of mentor important still?
Coaching is basically mentorship. So yeah, if you have joined coaching, it's fine. You should take mentorship from them. And if you are not joining a coaching, then the role of mentors becomes more important. So look at YouTube toppers, they are virtual mentors. Then if you can get in touch with some teachers, that is fine. Your peers are your greatest mentors, I think, because when you write mock tests with them, you write answers with them, and you compare it with each other, that gives you a competitive spirit while preparing. So that is also helpful.
In my opinion, there's a dichotomy here, like coaching. In some places, coaching means classes. So if you're just taking the classes, then yes, you need mentorship. But if you're getting mentorship, I think you can just take overall help. It's going to help you. But if you're taking classes is just like you're reading a book or you're watching, videos out there that are for free or download it from Telegram. But if you're actually genuinely getting mentorship, then that is going to work wonders for you, I believe. So
yes, that's right.
I think there's a lot of final year college students that are facing problems with concentration and consistency and not able to cover daily newspapers. So I think you covered that part. But okay, we're gonna take questions that are not discussed, right? So is there some insight for 2025 aspirants that are bearing like 2 years later?
For 2025 aspirants, they have almost 2 years right now. Yeah, that's when I started. So balance it with your college preparation, and see, the key is consistency. And how to go about it? Fix the time that you think is most productive for you for UPSC preparation. For me, that was morning, as I previously mentioned. So never compromise on that. In your most productive time, prepare for UPSC and keep your other commitments on the sidelines. That is the way to go about it. 2 years, you have sufficient time. You can start slow, gradually build up, and write your attempt in the best manner.
Right. So Karthikeya has asked, how did you manage your breaks during preparation, during the period of burnout or exhaustion? How often did you take breaks? It's like a mental health question.
So for me, I used to take breaks. It was not consistent ever, but you can think that 5 days of a month were sort of a break for me. 2 days, I would probably not even read newspaper. 2 days of a month. Read newspapers religiously. Don't compromise on that, because that keeps you generally aware. But you can take breaks once in 7 to 10 days. You can go for um, go to your nanny's place or something like that. Whatever gives you peace. Keep doing all these things. I was in touch with my friends always. I was active on WhatsApp. Instagram I used to deactivate, because that creates mental health burden to some extent for some people. But generally keep in touch with everyone, and see, you will have a general sense of whether you are doing well or not, because your conscience will be honest with you. If you think you are studying good enough, then you can take a break. Otherwise, if you are like really not doing well, talk with people, talk with your friends. Having a good mental state is crucial to preparing well for this exam. Otherwise, you will not be able to prepare. So keep your mental health really in check, and that will push you in studying. For this, talk with people, do what you like. If you are in a burnout stage, take 3 4 days, 5 days off, even a week off. But the idea is consistency. So this should be an exception, not the trend.
Right. So Nikhil and Anjali has asked for you to repeat the name of the podcast and the YouTube channel that you mentioned for current affairs.
Okay, so these were not really channels for current affairs. I mean, these were
So the podcast and the new
yeah,
YouTube channel separately. These are two separate
yeah.
questions. So
Okay.
yeah.
So there were several podcasts. The one that I specifically mentioned was Philosophize This by Stephen West. It's related to philosophy. And then there were several. I used to listen to Lex Friedman and the Huberman podcast, Joe Rogan sometimes, and there are several other podcasts. ANI podcast by Smita Prakash ma'am, that is also really great. Then some episodes of Ranveer Alapadia podcast. So look at the guest. If you think that would be interesting to you, it doesn't have to be related to UPSC, honestly, because you will use examples from that. You will learn life lessons from that, and that helps you. This is the podcast department. Now YouTube, there are several creators. There is Think School. Initially, it used to give business case studies, and it wasn't directly related to UPSC preparation, but it taught me so much about the world of finance, and I was able to use it in the preparation and in my general life. Then there is The Print. This is online news organization run by its editor-in-chief Shekhar Gupta. That is very good. I used to watch a lot of journalists on that specific channel. Then there are several others that you can follow based on what you like, the personality of the creator. But it is supplementary part of your preparation. The core part is your books. It is your monthly magazine. It is your answer writing and mock tests. This is when you don't want to study, you are having your meal, or you just want a break. That's when these are for.
Right. So a lot of students are asking about your essay sources and preparation. Did you study for it differently, or did you just study it alongside GS?
So I did most of my essay preparation between prelims and mains. Preparation in the sense writing. Your essay preparation goes hand in hand with your general awareness. So if you are generally aware about things, you will have content for your essay. But the main part of essay is in writing essays. That I did between prelims and mains. And see, for preparation of essays, there's not much, because that's the basic material of your preparation is what you'll use. But read the essays of toppers and start writing. I think now is a good time to start for the next year. I did it between prelims and mains, but you can start right now also. Once you write 3 4 essays, you will get a general feel of whether you are writing fine or you need improvement. Of course, you will need improvement. Keep looking at toppers copies for that reason. Those are very instrumental to improving any part of your answer writing, whether it's essay or ethics. And then there are those general hacks that are told, that prepare quotes, prepare data, and maintain your consistency and flow. These things will come along while you read toppers copies and write your own essays.
So a very interesting, very practical question has been asked by Rahul Nandu. He asked how to manage plan B along with UPSC. So did you have a plan B? Of course, you were preparing for law, but to all people.
Yes, I think plan B does give you a peace of mind. I had a pre-placement offer, a job offer from a law firm, but the day I got the news that I cleared prelims is when I resigned even before joining. So I did not really go there. My later on plan B was to write judiciary 2 years, 3 years down the line, or give state PCS exams. So in that sense, it is helpful to have a general idea of what you will be doing, but give your first attempt with all seriousness. I did not write the state PCS exam. I did not look at judiciary papers. UPSC was my sole concern in the first attempt. And I thought if I do not make it this time, then perhaps during the second attempt, I'll think about other things. Since I had done a professional course, BLLB honors, I knew I could go for litigation. That did give me peace of mind. So it's better if you have that. But even if not, give your first attempt in all seriousness, then start looking at other avenues.
Right, very practical answer indeed. So Aditya, there are a lot of questions. I think we are going to reach out to the students on a one-on-one level and answer those questions. There's a whole timetable, so we will need time to go through that and analyze it for you. So Aditya, before parting with, I really want to understand from your own personal lenses, what does the future look like for Aditya Pratap Singh now? So what are you working on personally, and what are you planning for your future?
So life has obviously changed a lot after the exam. Now I'm looking forward to the foundation course and then later joining the civil services, serving the country in my capacity. So it is now about general improvement. Like I am reading books on different like autobiographies to motivate myself, and then self-improvement books, and then about general economy, the country. So that is there, and that is pretty much it. I'm meeting people, hoping to improve myself along the way.
That's amazing, Aditya. We wish you all the best, and we know that you're going to be an excellent civil servant, considering you're a lawyer as well. So we can't wait to see you on field. Thank you so much for joining with us, and best of luck for everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining our webinar, and we'll give you a call on a one-on-one level and we'll discuss everything with you at the end. Thank you so much.